I'm Jane Richardson. Your vote and my vote count. Vote.
I am Dr. Herbert Miller II, Senior Pastor of Metropolitan Baptist Tabernacle here in the city of Flint. I vote.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jarvis Richardson, and I am your host for Meet the Candidates. And today I'm excited for our guest who is seeking a seat in the 5th Ward of the city of Flint, DeWaun E. Robinson. Mr. Robinson, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing well, man. I'm glad to be here. Excited to be alive. I just continue want to help uplift this community, man. So I'm all well. Can't complain.
Awesome. That's awesome.
How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. We doing what we can to try to uplift the community as well.
Come on now. Come on, man. That's it, man. That's it and that's all.
So can you give us an introduction and a little bit of background about you?
Absolutely. So my name is DeWaun E. Robinson. I'm born and raised here in the city of Flint. Started off as an activist during the Flint water crisis. I just wanted to get engaged in the community. I just wanted to be a support. At that time, we was going through a man-made epidemic. And, we just wanted to make sure that the residents at the time wanted to, at least be made whole or hold folks that was responsible, accountable. And so we were on the ground providing water for residents and just doing what we can to push the issue in Lansing to make sure that our youth weren't impacted by it, working in the schools, doing youth programs during school. Of course, some of the things that I've been engaged in, over that course of time, served as, Black Lives Matter president, just really activating and advocating for underserved and disenfranchised people, right, through fighting structural racism, systemic racism, frontlining. And I think that has definitely played a very big part in trying to right the ship. Also served as a Flint Housing Commissioner for 5 years, writing public policy and ensuring that we pretty much took care of the residents that was in our housing sites. We had 8 housing sites we were responsible for, managing millions of dollars to ensure that they had the resources and the upkeep and the maintenance to have a high quality of life, ensuring that we address homelessness, right? Providing those type of stipends, working with HUD to be able to ensure that folks have vouchers and they didn't have, the worries of, nowhere to live. And, I'm also a small business owner here in the city of Flint, Artistic Vision Enterprise. We engage in a lot of different cultural arts events. Some of you might remember Spotlight. You might have been down there a couple of times, Jarvis. We was a bunch of young kids, man, just kind of performing, doing poetry. We had vendors out, man. It was a good partnership with the Greater Flint Art Council just to showcase the art. And, on the political side, man, I've also engaged and assisted with many campaigns, man, over the course of these last 10, 15 years, just helping support, trying to get the right people in position to be able to lead the city. And so I'm always coming from a supportive role, and that's something that's important, right? We always look at ourselves as a servant. When you talk about being engaged and being a part, we are all just, members of this community looking to make it better. Also served as Juneteenth chair, right? Of course, we've been doing Juneteenth, working with many people, many organizations, many folks, right? Just doing, trying to keep this thing, what we call this thing of ours, man, alive and well. It's been going on for 54 years, going on before, I was alive, right? We had the likes of Dr. E. Hill Deloney, Ms. Catherine Blake, Ms. Janice Muhammad, brothers like Paul Heron, just phenomenal people that has been a part of this community. that always, hold true to the values of who we are as people, loving ourselves and understanding, our role in society, understanding we are the original people of this world. That's a very critical thing, especially with Black people. You have to understand that, man. You have to love yourself. You have to love the skin you in. So those are some values that hold true deep to me, man. I live by a sense of value system, a code of ethics and principles, man, that continue to keep guiding us. And so that's how we continue to be better every day. So just a member here from the city, trying to help make a difference, stepping up where I can, where I'm needed. Um, that's kind of how I see this thing, man. And just appreciate all the people, all the time that I spent here, all the things that I've learned, even to the positions that we're doing now. Um, helping with the peer recovery coach, serve as a licensed clinician here in Genesee, Jackson, and Washington County, and just assisting keeping families together. Right? I'm big on families. I'm a single father too as well. So I have a daughter that's 16, and my son turned 18 today. So man, they have been a part of this growth and this transition. And I'm still wild myself, man. To have an 18-year-old son, man, is definitely prolific. But that's what make me who I guess I am, today.
So let me ask you, what inspired you to run for Flint City Council, and why do you believe that now is the right time for your leadership?
Because I've been on a grassroots level for a long time. I've been definitely in the thick of things, and if you understand the heart of this community, you understand what people are saying. We have been dealing with a traumatic experience for quite some time, and what has been unfortunate is because we put our trust in elected leadership. You expect them to do the work, and we expect them to represent for us as constituents, which is the role and responsibility. But always understand the powers with the people. The people have to design, and people have to continue, not only just vote, but they have to be a part of the planning. And so those are some of the things. Those are some things I hold true to. So, with me being engaged and assisting with many campaigns, me understanding and I guess being at the low level, if you will, right? Just doing the work because that's what we committed to doing. It's our time to step up. We can ask and we can hope and we can pray, without any action, nothing will prevail. So this is my way of, I guess, saying like, what, I'm doing my part and to be able to step up in the neighborhood in the Fifth Ward, which I have known all my life. Right, my family has. I grew up, the family house is on Newell Street, right behind Christ Fellowship. So I've seen the transitions of when my grandparents came up here from Edwards, Mississippi to, move here on Newell. And every one of our family members, the Crowders, the Babies, had a house on Newell. Growing up on that block in a neighborhood with everybody, that, grew up with, to this day, seeing what's going on. And right now, it has digressed in a way that, is concerning. So for me to be able to say, okay, well, I definitely want to make sure that, I can help and assist in the ways that I can. Why not? Right? Why not step up? Why not step up to the plate? Why not be a part of the progress? Why not take the concerns of the citizens, not only in that neighborhood or in that area, but for the community and represent with, colleagues, right, who believe in the same vision to move Flint forward. That's what energizes. And I think this is a collective role. And, for one, I really necessarily, I'm okay with always working from the back end. I'm always okay with being behind the scenes. Sometimes, things and people and positions, um, catapult you or put you or, need you to play a role and play a spot. So, for me, that's just that's what it came down to. I think it was something that the neighborhood and folks were saying, "Hey, listen, I think it'd be something good for you to step up and just give it a shot, right?" Kind of understand some of the plight of the city. That's the type of energy that needs to be on city council, but then also operate in a way that we function and we productive, efficient, and we effective, and that's what I like. From the perspective over here. That's what we like to see, not only in the Fifth Ward, but throughout the city of Flint.
What are the duties of the city council?
So some of the duties, of course, man, is, one of the main things is passing the budget. So you have to definitely ensure that We do want to have another year of passing the budget, ensuring that things are being allocated and the buckets that's going to make this city a success, ensuring that those dollars are going to make sense, right? Make sure we eliminate the waste. So the primary goal is for us as city council members to be able to pass the budget, man. That's first and foremost. Of course, we'll be looking at writing legislation. We look at it from a policy standpoint. We are the legislative branch of the city, working in concert with the executive branch, which is the mayor's administration, to be able to work together to ensure that we operate in the finest fashion for the people that we represent. It's oversight. Of course, we provide oversight, right? It's like the board, right? We will be the board. The mayor would be the executive director. And so ensuring that, our residents, not only in our ward, but things are being moved. The city is growing. The city is bringing business, bringing opportunity, allocating resources, not only into those different departments, but ensuring that it's reaching the neighborhood. And then being a liaison for constituent service, right? You get a lot of calls from people who are in your neighborhood who have issues, whether it be in streetlights, blight, abandoned properties, potholes, all the things that we hear on a day-to-day basis. You're responsible to be able to take those concerns, but put some action behind it, whether it be in point them in the right direction or necessarily getting the work done yourself. And so those is what a city council person is, responsible for and what is expected to do. And then always remember that you work for the people who put you in office. It's not about, you and your ideas and concepts. You might have some ideas and concepts, like we may have some ideas and concepts that we want to see and want to do. But ultimately is what the people in the area is saying, this is what we need you to do. You're supposed to get it done.
So if chosen for this role, how will you ensure that new council members, staff, and appointees understand and follow the charter's requirements from day one?
I think it's more or less, man, just having a real shared vision and a real understanding of what our role is, right? But then also having that training. When you come in day one, you want to be, doing your research. You want to become knowledgeable of the city charter. You want to understand its ins and outs. And then I know it's what people may interpret, but I think it's something that we should all look at together and say, like, okay, this is something that, I believe the city charter as a bylaw, as a guiding force, how we operate in this city. And everybody has to buy in, everybody has to be about it, and everybody has to cooperate. And I think one thing that we talk about is decorum on city council. We've been seeing what's been going on for the last 3-4 city council setups. It's been very difficult to see that take place. People just may have personality issues or may not necessarily like a person. And they can have very good ideas, but just because, you may not be on this side or you may not be rocking with that group, some people seek to dismantle any progress. And so what we have to do is be able to ensure that we operate under the city charter. We have to ensure that, it's not about personal feelings, it's not about egos, but what we can do collectively together. And then ensuring that, we get some resource out of this and writing resolutions, enforcing city ordinance, right? Ensuring that the budget and those dollars are being spent appropriately. That's what, makes a city successful. That's what makes it efficient. And that's what, I'm hoping, not even hoping, it's do or die for us. That's what it's mandatory that we come in, we get trained. There's dollars allocated towards training for city council members and to be able to utilize that, do retreats, come together, work as one. Day one, that's how, the setup should be, so that's something that, I definitely would be focusing on from at least, as being one seat.
What is your understanding of the charter's requirements for transparency and public access to information, and how will you ensure its compliance?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So the city charter is available online, so you can be able to read it and you'll be able to get understanding. It's of course how local government works. We went through a city charter review, and to be able to put these things in place for us to be able to follow. And I always understand, like, sometimes people interpret things differently, but that's what we all agreed on. Now, if there's some things that we need to change, some things we need to amend, then we need to look at that collectively as a group to say this makes sense for us. That's going to be able that we can follow. This can be our guideline in ensuring that the public before there's some amendments, those things should be brought forth to the community first and foremost. So then this is a work effort, with everybody, not just city council members, but also city community members, right? They're all involved, engaged in this and in that practice and that process. And that's something that, folks should be aware of. See, it should be about education. Education is key. See,
Absolutely.
if you don't understand, something, if you don't understand, how city government work, if you don't understand the city charter, then we should be able to help each other understand, right? And more or less, our community should be leading the effort, and that's one thing that's important for us. We want to be a very, very educated voting base. We want to be a very astute to, local government and functions and how departments are operating. Those things is gives you clarity, right? If you have any questions and concerns, that you can charge a city council person to be able to follow in that order. So that's going to be that's a top priority for myself.
So what is
Absolutely.
let me ask this question. How will you work with city clerk and the ombudsman and the ethics and accountability board to fulfill the charter's checks and balances?
Of course, the city clerk is madam, right? Functioning with all departments down there in the city clerk office. You have to have that relationship. But then also, as a city council person, you are responsible for appointing somebody on the ethics and accountability board. With that being said, once we can get a full body on the ethics and accountability board, then they can appoint a buzzman, right? Which we haven't had. And we haven't had one. There's been some folks who've been intern, but we haven't had to solidify a buzzman for umpteen years. And that's unacceptable. So when folks in the community have a grievance, with city council, mayor, or any government official, they don't have no one to go to, right? The Ethics Accountability Board should be able to be a fully functioning board, to be able to, do the investigation, to work with the ombudsmen, right? To be able to ensure that those grievances are being addressed and that we just not operating lawlessness. And so one of my things is, day one, we'll be looking to be able to appoint a ombudsman. Of course, first we'll be able to look to appoint an ethics and accountability member for the Fifth Ward, and then work alongside with colleagues to ensure that we have a ombudsman, right? So we all have checks and balances.
Mhm.
That's critical, right? And that's how, we want to be effective. We want to be efficient. We want to operate, with rules, and we want to operate with values, a system that's not lacking.
So I want to weave these two questions together because we only got about a minute left. How would you protect and empower vulnerable citizens in the Fifth Ward, and what is your long-term vision? If you could put those two together.
My whole thing, man, since day one, man, it's always been about protecting. It's always been about advocating. It's always about working with the underserved. I am an underserved representative. So those things have to be protected, right? It shouldn't be about classism here in the city of Flint. It shouldn't be people feeling like they don't have no opportunity. It should be employment. There shouldn't be homelessness taking place at the rate that it's going here. If you look at, in the Fifth Ward, we have a big issue with homelessness, but we don't have any solutions. Yeah, they can go to the Warming Center. They can go to Carriagetown. They can go to all these facilities for the day, right? And they back out in the streets. But what has to be is a plan of action. And not to say that, Carriagetown, just not to say that those Warming Center doesn't have a plan of action, but it has to be something concrete, right? Because a lot of folks are dealing with mental health. So those are things that, we have to, have some professionalism, professional support services, wraparound services, to be able to help, disenfranchised, ensure that people have employment so they can feed their family, ensure that our neighborhoods feel comfortable and they safe, right? You don't have a bunch of crime riddling in the neighborhoods. Those things play a part in the demise. So if we want to change that, it's up to the people in those areas to change it, right? But you also have to get to them to change the mindset to do that, to make that happen. So those are some long-term visions, right? We do want to have a safe community. We want to have our youth not feeling like they don't have any opportunity, right, for the future. We want our elders to be safe and comfortable in their house, in their apartments, in their neighborhoods, right? We want to ensure that, this city not only is, talked about as a water crisis Prom City, but somebody that, a resurgence, a restorance, right? When we talk about Flint Strong, we got to really be about every bit about that, right? We want to show the world this is an opportunity for us to come out swinging, to be able to show, like, it's some very good talent here, but we can show what we got. We can show the world that, we can be at the top at one point in time when we had GM here and we had opportunities. Everybody was making money, to being plagued by a water crisis, to People City coming down to a city of 79,000 folks, to changing it back up, man, to where we rebuilding. We got our schools strong. We got neighborhoods popping. We got, flowing. We got downtown. We got energy going. People has a pride about being Flint, right? He's happy to say I'm from Flint, right? Because all the great things that's going on. That's the vision that, we all care. And we learn from the past. Right, like we talked about the old guard, we talked about the folks that was in position, that had position, and still in position. But I think these things now is like transitioning to those new days, right? Like yourself, man, and people on the front line has been doing the work, right? That just need opportunity, right, to show what they got, and that's what we see. The future of Flint, right? We are the future of Flint. Taking on hold too, also the teachings of the past, right? Because you have to learn the past and know where you're going. Yeah. So I see us building out for the next 50, 100 years, man. And then the next generation go take it from there.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
Got radio waves, video vibes, a podcast with wild guests, and cartoons that might make your grandma do a double take.
I'm Paul, Next 5 media producer, tech whisperer, and full-time overthinker. If it's strange, bold, thoughtful, or just plain weird, I'm probably making it. Tap, follow, subscribe, whatever your thumbs feel like doing today. Let's have some fun. And hey, if you like your content with a little extra sparkle and a lot more spectacle, interesting and even unexpected video.
So click, tap, follow, subscribe, whatever your thumbs feel like doing today. The YouTube channel Spectacle TV. Subscribe, binge, laugh, raise an eyebrow. It's all there waiting for you.